Hello, everyone. So today we have Dan from Ocular. Welcome, Dan. Dan's been a CS leader for over 10 years now, and I think he's one of the ones that has seen everything pre-AI to post-AI. So very excited to get your take on this whole AI topic, Dan. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks. It's actually it's quite interesting the way you just put that. I've never really thought about that before, but things pre AI, post AI. It's kind of yeah, it's just an interesting way I can't think about it.
So maybe let's start there, Dan.
Yeah.
How has the CS role changed over the past few years? I mean, I think specifically like 2022 when this whole thing started booming.
But you know what? I don't necessarily think the role has changed. I think expectations of the role has changed. So even if we think about if we take AI out of the equation, right, just for a minute, I know that's kind of the topic of this discussion, but just for a minute, we take it out of the equation. We saw, I think all of us know this, right? We saw a huge
Yeah.
boom post COVID, huge VC rounds being loaded up, multiple different businesses on multiples that really they should never have been loaded up on,
Yeah.
mass hiring, insane growth, and then lots of businesses realized at that point that they'd grown too quick. They couldn't hit the sort of numbers that they'd promised and went through a bit of a downsizing or downshift or right sizing as a business. And
Yeah.
this happened at so many businesses globally, but this also came about the time that AI started to really kind of come into its infancy, right? Like at that point. So it
Yeah.
it then became another thing that was sort of like, oh, hold on a second. How do we as a business now start to leverage this to become more operationally efficient without needing to sort of scale our businesses up to the sizes that we thought we had to post COVID? So I think it's interesting how customer success has gone through that journey as well, and the difficulty there and the expectation of the role that has actually, I think, changed across that time without AI even being in the picture at all. So
Yeah.
I think in general, customer success has gone through its own, don't really know what the word is, evolution, you put it that
Evolution.
way, but like it's gone through its own, I think, reflection in that
Yeah.
time. And then all of a sudden, also now we've got AI, which has kind of really come to the forefront. I'd say massively in the last 12 months. I know it's
Yeah.
been longer than that, but in terms of businesses' urgency to leverage it, it's been the last 12 months. But I think CS ultimately, to go back to your original question, Jose, I think don't actually think the outcome of the role has changed. I think it is still the same. It's just the expectation of the role
Yeah.
has changed, I think, in terms of what businesses need from customer success.
No, I completely agree. And I mean, it was very clear. I remember because that was when we started raising one of our rounds. It was like, COVID hit and all of that. And then all of a sudden, companies had to rely on retention. So then there was more pressure on
Yeah.
CS for like retaining, and they had to be more commercially savvy. And now it's like, okay, is this the new sales? Then AI came.
Yeah.
So do you think because I one thing that I hear a lot, and I don't know if this is just something that people always put on LinkedIn or they genuinely mean it. It's like, oh, people are still thinking like it's 2022 and they're having the same conversations.
Yeah.
Do you think we are um, like they should be having the same conversations? Are we talking about like certain fundamentals that are universal and timeless, or should we be thinking about completely different things?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting when people, because I've seen those things as well online, right? Like people adopting CS like it's 2022, and I don't actually know what that means. Like I think lots of people say that, and it kind of has different meaning behind it.
Yeah,
I think what people really mean that like, and also you mentioned an interesting thing around same conversations that they're having, and I'm sort of like, well, what does that actually mean? Like conversations with customers, like because realistically, if you look at what we as a function ultimately how we've I guess, approached our role
yeah,
or approached sort of our understanding customer success is to build really strong connections and relationships with our end buyers, right? And to really try and understand their pains as a business and make sure our software is deployed in a way that meets those business
yeah,
outcomes, right? To take away those pains. That hasn't changed. Like, still the same. At B2B, if you buy a software solution, I need a result from it, right? Like, if I'm going to activate some budget, I need to be able to display an evidential result from the deployment of my software. That hasn't
yeah,
changed. That was the same in 2022 as it is now. The difference that I'm referring to, right, that we spoke about at the start, is the expectation of the role internally at a business, which
Mhm.
realistically is you need to be able to really effectively own a predictable revenue stream. And it's not just a predictable revenue stream. Actually, at most businesses, depending on your size, it's the biggest revenue stream at the entire company. It's basically the
Yeah.
majority of all of our revenue. And that emphasis just wasn't there two,
Mhm.
3 years ago. I think it kind of was under the surface, but a lot of customer success teams didn't really own that conversation or own that. And now they're
Yeah.
being made to own it because it's now basically part of the return on investment of a customer success org at a business. And I think that's that learning that I think, or I can't remember how to put it, not necessarily learning, but that realization that a lot of customer success leaders have been through over the last sort of 3, 4 years, and some of the difficult moments that have come with that. So yeah, it's been a really, really interesting time. I just think now, yeah, the same conversations always really, that kind of term really interests me because I'm like, well, actually, a lot of the same conversations will be had the same way. It's just what is the expectation of what the conversations you're having are
Yeah.
actually leading to. I think that's what people really, really mean. But yeah,
Yeah.
I see that a lot.
And from I mean, that's I completely agree. That's interesting, right? Like ultimately, you need to help them achieve those outcomes, and maybe that's another conversation as well, right? But I always feel like that's another conversation that is always on LinkedIn, right? And it's like they make it sound like there's this universal solution to help
Yeah,
2,000 customers adopt like perfectly at
yeah.
scale, right? And every company is very different and it's very nuanced. But do you think from a team perspective, and if you think of like a high performing CS team, has anything changed there? Or maybe the question is like, what would you think defines a high performing CS team today? Is it again same fundamentals as before, or with this whole AI thing? Do you feel like CS is already at a place where they could generally be, you know, doing things completely differently?
Yeah, really good question. To answer that directly, I'd say you're looking at a team that can overachieve on their overall goals, KPIs, and also be able to extract 8 to 10 times more than they were before. And the reason why I think the second part's really interesting here is AI has really enabled that. Like, there's nowhere to hide with that anymore, right? We have the tools, we have the options at our disposal to really enable that and
Yeah,
extract so much more from what we do because actually the tools are there to kind of pick up the majority of the legwork that we were having to pick up before. Like you, you know, you you see these CS teams, right, that are busy. They're usually, I mean, you probably see it as like any other business in the past, right? Like CS teams, it's difficult to say, right, because everyone's slammed,
yeah,
especially at startup and scale up, right? But the CS team are always the busiest of the
yeah,
organization,
yeah,
right? And then when you dig into it, it's just like, well, I've got to be voice of the customer, right? I've got to have all of my customer meetings. I've got to bring it back to the business. I've got to sync with product. I've got to make sure that, you know, the product's innovating in the direction our customers want it to. Then I've got to make sure that I'm hooking up with sales and making sure if those, those upsell motions are in play, and I'm making sure I'm getting the right information back to those guys, and then finance, and then ops, and then do you know what? I've got all of my BA, like you would hear all of that sort of stuff. And the realism is about 90% of everything that I've just mentioned there now can be picked up by AI today.
yeah.
Like literally, I'm seeing it now. It can. So then I start to think, okay, cool. Do we all just like now the other 10% and just clock out for the day? Right? No, of course not. Like,
Do you
how
sit
much
back and
more?
watch?
Yeah, right. I mean, we could, but like the point is, like, what more can we be doing there? Like, where can we now be leaning in, knowing that this piece is picked up? Where
Yeah,
can we lean in as a function to make sure that like we're driving optimum bottom line value to the business realistically? Like that's what we need to be doing. So I think that's the big thing, right? And yeah, I think AI, like when I think about the last 12 months and that 90%, what you could do 18 months ago and what you can do today, it's insane. It really is insane. Yeah,
yeah. I think that's a really good point. I feel like, especially in CS, it's almost like getting it. CS typically always gets kind of late to the tech party, right? Because it's more complicated, right? Like if you look at the
yeah,
tools in sales and marketing, they're typically way easier to adopt than the stuff for CS, where you need a lot of access to different tools, you need a lot of access level
yeah,
control. It's just more complicated to get it right. but it definitely feels like in the last 6 to 12 months, CS can now start doing a lot. Um, how do you think the role will? Do you think we're now at a place where like it's evolved a little bit and now okay, AI is here, we got it? Or do you think we still got like loads of room of like that evolution? You mentioned that 80-90% of that stuff can get picked up, and I completely agree. I mean, we do it as well, right? In our company we see how like the voice of the customer, like what are the key topics that are mentioned in the conversations, whether it's like coming through the tickets or in conversations like this one over a video call, all of that gets picked up, and you don't need to have like notes and sit for 2 hours every week with the product team and all of that. Do you think that's going to get to a point where it's going to continue growing and it's going to get to like 95 and we do five, or do you think we've hit now a wall and we need to like sit back and re kind of configure this?
I think no, it's a really good point you make there. I think not so much that we've hit a wall, because I think businesses, us as an industry, I think it will continue to evolve, right? So realistically, that will consistently be changing, and AI will be picking a lot of those changes and that sort of the new structural elements that we have as a business that we need to
Yeah.
adapt to. AI will basically adapt to those things. The one area where I do wonder, I don't know the answer to this, right? I really don't, but I do think about it. I have felt, and again, no data to back this up or evidence. It's just multiple conversations I'm having with CS leaders and sales leaders today. My experience as well over the last 18 months is that the human element of our role is becoming more and more important.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is customers want more face time than they ever have, in my experience. Um, it's kind of, I'll be honest with you, it's kind of one, there's been a 180-degree shift. Like if I go back into my previous role 2 years ago, it was actually a lot of the time it was let's not bother with a face-to-face meeting. Can we just jump on a call? Like I feel like post-COVID, we went through that whole Zoom shift, right? Everyone was on like Zoom,
Yeah.
Zoom, 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 Zoom. Everyone web call, and it was kind of like that. I feel like there's been a bit of a shift now. Actually, customers that we speak to, I speak to every day, actually would rather just meet for a coffee and do a face-to-face and not do a Zoom. Like, I think everyone's just fatigued from video calls.
Yeah.
So actually, I feel from a CS perspective, that in-person touch that was so important, you know, 7, 8 years ago, I think is becoming more and more important again. Now, how does AI pick that up? Well, today it can't. Like, I can't go and meet my customer for a lunch and say, cool, just before we get started, can I just open this up and put my transcriber on? Like, it's just weird. Like, you're just not going to do that, right? So that conversation that I'm having, again, all of a sudden it's organic. All of a
Yeah.
sudden it's just me and the customer. There's no note taker in my back pocket to make sure I don't miss anything. So all of those key skills, all of the key um, listening skills that you pick up on, that you work on throughout your
Mhm.
career, right? Like as you come up through CS, they're all being leveraged again. I don't have AI to rely, or I don't have my note taker to rely on feeding the LLM to give all the information in the right way, right? Like,
Yeah.
and actually, I think that's going to be a big part of what we do again. So when I think about the other
Mhm.
5%, it's more not necessarily are we going to be going to meet customers and that's all we're going to be doing, but when we're thinking about those conversations and how to strategically navigate those conversations with customers to really identify the key pain points, who are the new champions that we play that we need to be aware of, what do they care about, and like all of those kind of complexities that happen at a business that realistically is our customer. A lot of
Yeah.
those are going to be in-person discussions, conversations again, which they, in my experience, haven't been over the last sort of 3, 4 years. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how does not how does AI help me with that, but
Yeah.
how am I successful in that realm in a way that means I can extract the information from that conversation and feed the AI to help me. And I'm interested to see how we bridge that gap. But I feel over the next sort
Yeah.
of 12 months, more's going that way. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. How do you think like maybe up and coming younger CSMs can still polish those skills that will be required when we go back to having more like these sort of face-to-face interactions? Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. What do you think about that whole relationship with like losing your human edge, relying on LLMs, but then knowing that if you go for a coffee with a customer, right, that's going to be probably one of the most powerful things, but you need to be ready for that, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you've never met anyone in person if you started working 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's kind of it's funny, but I'm kind of sad that it's that might actually be the case for like because it's kind of funny. It's why I got into CS. Like I loved that, like face to face, like
Yeah.
taking clients out. Like I just loved it. Like absolutely loved it. The fact that you could you just get I can't really put it into words. You just develop a different bond with someone when you meet them in person. You spend
Yeah.
that kind of downtime with them, as opposed to when you don't. And it's just different. I've seen it over the years. Like the relationships you have with those customers, they are just different. You can rely on them a little
Mm.
bit more. You can message them when something's up right and be like, "Hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like I'm a bit worried about that." You have that kind of line that you're
Yeah.
never going to develop that over one-to-one bi-weekly episode. You just not. So yeah, it's kind of sad that I feel like yeah, there's probably some people in the profession right now that actually don't do much of that anymore. So it's really, yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, back to your question. So it's a really tricky one because I was thinking about this a lot. I so I give you an instance where I so somebody on my team um put this great email together right to a customer, and it was really clear then it was actually the way it was written. It was great. It was like textbook, right? And it should just been it's been spat out, Claude, pretty much, right? And I remember at the time my thought was I it took me years, right, to
Yeah.
craft that email. Do you know what I mean? Like when you're trying to get a
Yeah.
point across, it's kind of an interesting scenario. Like it falls in the grey area where it's like, we don't need a call for this, but it's probably more than an email. It probably is a conversation, but it's going to have to be an email. And you have to craft that email in a way that nails all the right points, but has the right sentiment. And sometimes it takes a little bit of, you know, I would put it together, go away for an hour, come back, revisit it, and
Yeah.
then by the end of the day, you send the email. And today, that's probably the most inefficient way of doing anything. Like if you said to someone, it took me 8 hours to send an email, they'd be like, "Are you crazy? Like, what are you doing?" Right? But it is one of those skills that you just it's hard to kind of it's hard to detail. Like you learn it through the years of having to go through that situation, and now
Yeah.
you kind of almost don't have to. And if you're someone like me, you'll always be slightly nervous with that because you're like, well, I actually know how hard it is to craft an email like that or get a communication like that across. But if you've never had to do that, then you probably don't know that, and you're probably like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. I'll just get all the key points out from GPT-5 or whatever and just send it over. It's like easy peasy. Um, I my advice would be don't worry too much about the I'm not doing anything in person or oh I'm not writing email. Like don't stress yourself. Like if you're leveraging the tools that are there for you to leverage to be more efficient in your role and extract that 10x that I'm talking about, great. Just every week, give yourself the opportunity to
Yeah.
have an in-person conversation and write one of your own emails. Like I know that sounds crazy and it's a bit basic, but like and use that as less of a sort of a CS task or touch point, more of just a self development time. Because actually
Mm.
I think there was lots of self development in our roles years ago that we didn't even really realise was self development. It was just BAU because we didn't have the tools at our disposal to do it for us. Do you see
Yeah.
what I mean? And I feel like
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
we
Completely
always took
agree.
advantage of that, whereas now actually a lot of that those practices like that, just that concept's just it's looked at as inefficiency. So take that time. Like if you're completely hooked up, you've got GPT-5 on the go for like all of your meeting prep notes. You've got you know your call recording happening, so you don't need to do meeting notes anymore because it's all being done for you. So you don't have to write anything down. You don't have to put it into HubSpot or Salesforce. Like all that's fantastic, brilliant, absolutely great. But take that time once a week to write that email and really challenge yourself. Like, what is it I'm trying to get across here? What sort of action or outcome am I looking for in this email? And really take the time to put that together and make sure you have that one catch up with a customer. If it's a coffee, if it's a lunch, if it's something quite casual, have that time per week with a customer and just really give yourself that exposure because, yeah, I feel like as this human element starts to sort of kick down the hill a bit more, you're going to be in a much better position where you've kind of been leveraging that opportunity to do those things that actually a lot of people won't because they're so hooked in
Yeah.
every single day. So that's what I would say. And use it as a development thing, purely as
Mm.
a development thing.
Yeah, I think it eventually will catch you if you are literally just offloading everything, meeting notes, summary, email back, that eventually there's going to be a hard conversation and you might not have that confidence, right? Which ultimately that's where the human side, that's the part that you can't really replace, right? Like navigating political dynamics of an account, like, oh, this person
Yeah.
has left or whatever. Or um yeah, basically like being good at negotiation or having a coffee with someone and really understanding what is actually happening in that account, right? That's the feeling that I get. Like if
Yeah.
I offload too much stuff, right, it feels like eventually it's gonna, you're gonna lose your edge
It,
eventually in one of those angles, right?
and it could be better as well. So like it's so funny. You mentioned there about, I can't remember sorry exactly what you said, but like a change in dynamic of the business
Yeah,
or someone leaving or whatever. I remember obviously for years now you've got these big tools that I've worked with lots of them. I've deployed lots of them in different business like CS tools, right? And they'd always have that the one part of the CS tool, right, that I was like, oh, if this worked properly, this would be a game changer. And it was the champion change thing, right? And usually
yeah,
what that would be is it would be a LinkedIn plugin and it would look at someone's
yes,
role. And when it changed, it would flag to you, right?
yeah.
And I'd always think, oh, I love that, but it's so useless because by the time the role's changed, it's too late. it's like it's like it's like 2 months too late, right? And secondly, it feels really reactive. And but the realism is there was no way of building anything that really did that. Whereas now you can leverage Perplexity for a lot of these. Like Perplexity AI is really, really good. Like you
Yeah.
can really leverage it for this kind of change. So now what you can do is, providing you've got that more reliable information about certain changes that happen in a certain business, when you then go to your conversation, you can bring that up, right? Like if you know that
Mm.
source of data is reliable, you can then go and say, well, hey, so and so, see, Tim's moved on into always or
Yeah.
into a different area of the business or now has a new remit. Like, how's that change? Is that right? Okay, you can start those conversations in a more natural way instead of that conversation being cool. So, what changes are happening at your business right now? And it's like that's just. Well, and then you're kind of in
Yeah.
that just sort of weird, mundane conversation with customer. Actually, start bringing more interesting sort of concepts that,
Yeah.
or things that right? Because you're leveraging the things that are there that gives that information. Whereas before they were so reactive, right? Like, I remember I'd go to go to a customer meeting when that thing had triggered through and be like, oh, see, so and so's moved. And they were like, oh yeah, I mean that's been on the cards for like last 3 months now. Is it? Oh, he's only just updated his LinkedIn, is it? It's like, oh yeah. So it's
It
all
becomes
about
almost like
how,
a tool more for salespeople to know, like, hey, this was a champion that's moved on. Maybe we can get into
yeah,
his account, right? Rather than a
a
pure
hundred
CS.
percent. And the
Yeah,
concept
that's
was so
yeah.
cool, but it just there was no way of getting it to work in a reactive way. Whereas now we've got things that can help us in that way. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
What That's a really good use case, and I agree. Like we never really developed that feature, and I mean, obviously we work in CS tech, right? Because basically for the same reason, right? It became more of like this thing that happened, right? More than now it's picking up the signals, right? Whether they mention like a competitor in your calls or things like that. But curious to know, are there any sort of practical use cases? I mean, that's a really good one. I think, meeting prep and giving you ammo for like, some of these deeper conversations. Have you seen any other practical use cases from like that CS teams are using today that are kind of out there?
Yeah, sentiment. What's that? Sentiment the right word? Um, Behavioral
Behavioral.
cues
Mm.
from calls. So like a really good example of this is something I've been leveraging recently. It'll actually look at not just what people say, but how they say it, and the way in which other people react on the call when somebody says something.
Oh,
It's
really?
ridiculous, right? Like, and these are all the cues that you're kind of always trying to
Mm.
pick up on, which I think in the room are a lot, personally for me, are a lot easier to pick up on than a call. Like, I can always read that in the room quite, not easily, but quite effectively, but it is easier to do so. When you're on a Teams call, people have got their cameras off and stuff like that and on and
Yeah.
off. It's quite difficult to do so. But it's little things like, for example, if you're on a call with 9 people and you're presenting, and it just so happens that the main key stakeholder on that call that you want to engage is clearly typing, but you can't see them because you're presenting, the AI is picking up on that. So, 3 minutes for, like, Susie looked quite disengaged. Actually, she was typing like away while you were trying
Mm.
to land a key point, meaning she's probably quite disengaged. Like, things like that,
Mm.
like the AI picking up on that and actually placing that into a risk status
Mm.
is really, really, really interesting. So yeah, some of the more behavioural cues that the AI can pick up on that you may not have the scope to be able to do in a certain situation where you're presenting to a large group of people and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, and folding that back into sort of the analysis of the touch point afterwards when you're reading it back through, like, oh hey, I didn't know that. That's
Mm.
really could be nothing, could be concerning. Like, it gives
Yeah.
you an extra data point that you can lean on. So yeah, I've seen a lot of
That's a
that.
good one.
That's working quite well. So that's a really interesting one. The I think I'm sort of less whenever I talk to people about this stuff. I think the first thing that always comes up is the email summarization stuff. I think that's what people always go to. I actually think that's
Yeah.
that's becoming very outdated. Actually, quite quick. I mean, that's something that you've been able to leverage for a while now, right? Like, just write me an updated email with all the key points from the meeting and what like. I still think there's a lot of CS teams that are like talking about that as if it's the brand new shiny thing, and it's kind of like, wow, that's we're moving a lot faster than that. Like, I mean, that's kind of so that's kind of an out of the box thing. It's about how you take all, as we've mentioned, the behavioural pieces, the information, the physical follow-ups, like how you take all of that information from that touch point and inform the machine so that it gives you back a not just an accurate digest of what has happened, but what you should probably do next or think about doing next. I think that's the real big piece. So then it plugs into, okay, like, what are all of those things like that you need to
Yeah.
look at? But yeah, when you're delivering something on a web call, web can't believe I just use that word web call. Who says web anymore? Oh my god, shows how old I am. On a Zoom call, whatever it
And a
is.
Zoom call. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there you
No,
go. That's much more current. Yeah, web call,
no,
brilliant.
that's a good one. Like okay, take all this natural language and just pick up signals from anywhere, whether it's like a recording or a ticket, right? Would you be afraid to let your system like send 500 emails that are AI generated to your customers? Is that an area that you comfortable, you think we're there, or you still want to keep that kind of behind the human wall?
Yeah, I'm totally comfortable with that. I think the caveat there is how well trained is the
Yeah.
agent. I think at the end of the day, like, if I have an agent there and I know that it probably isn't as well trained as it could be, am I worried about it sending 500 emails? Yeah, kind of. But if you've got it to a point where it's so well trained, you give it as much information and context as you possibly can over, I don't know, a sustained period of time of training that agent, then yeah, I would probably look at it as, is it more fail safe? Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, we fall into this a lot, and I see it online, like, not just in CS, but lots of different professions. It's like, can we trust AI to do this? Like, there's so many, different variations, whether it's writing content for like the web or for products online, all that sort of stuff. Like, we don't trust AI to write this stuff or whatever it may be. Really depends on how well trained the agent is. Like, if you've spent the time and you've put in the effort to really train that agent, like you would do, right, with a when you brought a new CS team member on, it'd be the exact same
Yeah.
process. Like, how do we do that with the agent, but an agent that can kind of do it en masse in a way that one person couldn't do. Yeah.
How would you feel if you are basically engaging with, you bought a piece of software, you spent quite a lot of money on it, and then ultimately you're put in this cadence with an AI. Like you basically don't really engage with a human. Do you think as long as the quality is good, you don't really mind? Do you think there should always be that human aspect? Like, if you spend a lot of money psychologically, you want to and you need to speak to someone and feel like they've actually, spent some time drafting that email?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I've quite a specific opinion on this that, again, I can imagine a lot of people don't agree with. It's just kind of my take, like, for how I've screwed my head on with it. So when I think about what the example you gave there around the agent having to chat to an agent, I genuinely don't believe that the amount of money that you've spent on something manipulates how you would react to that situation. I think what I would say to that is, if I need an answer to something like now, because I need it now and I can go here and I get the answer that I need, do I really care if it's a person or an agent or whatever? No, not really.
Yeah.
Like I just got the
Yeah.
answer I needed. Or if I need to get the result and I've got that result and the evidence is there that I've got that result, great. That's basically what I pay for, pretty much, like out of my department budget, whatever it may be, or the department budget or the budget that I've applied for. So that's like my view on it.
That's a very interesting way to look at it. I completely agree. Do you think that eventually AI is almost like doing a big part of your job these days? Before we had these sort of specialized roles where like, hey, you sign the contract, you speak to this person who's like works in this box, does these things, then you move on to the next one. Eventually you get to CS and they'll try and expand some revenue and retain you and blah blah blah. Do you think that now that AI is doing whatever 50% of each of these functions, it kind of leaves less for needing to be specialized, and we might be going towards more of like a holistic post-sales person? I don't know what the title would be. Or do you think these boxes will always exist?
I do wonder if we're going back towards a more standardized go-to-market team,
Mm.
and the way in which we've seen this sort of branch off of new business and then customer success and then account management and then all of these different kind of areas that all sit within a go-to-market fund. Like really, that's what they are.
Yeah.
If we're going potentially pivoting to a situation where actually everybody that works from either the pre-sale up until, I don't call it post sales because it's like there is no post sales in this world. Things,
Yeah. Yeah.
the sales cycle is just consistent all the time, right? So like that
Yeah.
entire motion, just a go to market team with
Mm.
GTM professionals that sit more in the hunter field, as we
Yeah.
call it, right? And are just
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
really great logo hunters and bring on new customers, and GTM professionals that sit in the, what they call it, farmer,
Oh,
like all these like cool farmer, but actually we're all the same team. It's just that
yeah.
we have slightly different kind of skill sets, and I think actually that might help get over this whole thing that I still hear today, which is, oh, sales team and CS team, they just can't seem to work together, like they have conflicting interests, or like I still hear that, which is kind of crazy. Actually, like, do we just bring the whole thing together and just say it's the go-to-market function? You're responsible for this because of this, and we're all responsible
Yeah.
for the same thing, but your skills are best sat here and your skills are best sat there, and that's
Yeah.
how we're going to operate. I do wonder if that's the case, like whether you'll have customer success management or whatever it'll even be, 3 or 4 years. It's just part of this wider GTM thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I think. I
Yeah.
don't know. We'll see, but it'll be interesting.
So Dan, let's go for the final roundup questions, which we always ask. What would, if there is anything, does anything worry you about where everything is going?
I think it's not the AI that worries me. I think it's people's reaction, or how us as people react to the AI. I think that's what worries me. Um, More so because I don't know how that's.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I think history tells us that it will be a positive reaction. I mean, when you look back, it's kind of funny. I was thinking this the other day, right? Like if you look back on all of the real major um, moments in tech that have probably been bigger than this, actually, when you think about, or on par with it, right?
Mm.
We've ultimately we've reacted positively to all of them, right? Like when the internet was launched. I mean, is AI really bigger than that? I don't know. Like when the internet was launched, that was
It's
seismic. Like
insane.
we were in no way ready for that. Nobody knew really how to use the internet properly for about 4 years after it was actually
Yeah.
launched, right? Like
Yeah.
we're talking about AI and people not knowing how to use it. And there was a time where at businesses there was an internet team at the business. So within your company, there was a team that was dedicated to the internet. Like, do we have an internet team today? No. Like literally, if the internet isn't part of your business, like you just wouldn't survive. It's literally part of the DNA. Mobile was the same. When mobile
Mobile was
came
the same.
about,
Yeah.
right? Oh my God, hold on a
Yeah.
second. I can access everything on my phone. Like this is
Yeah.
crazy. And what did we have? We had mobile development teams, right? iOS,
Yeah.
Android. Like you would have those teams at your business. Now some of them today do, depending, still have those. But really, we don't have mobile teams anymore. It's full stack development, and actually everything that
Yeah.
you develop is for both web and mobile, right? It's part of the DNA. So like when you look back, all of these seismic shifts have already happened. It's just that we're amongst another one now, and
Mm.
we'll adapt. We'll adapt, and then there'll be another one in 10 years' time. Like so, less
Yeah.
so worried about the AI and sort of I'm more about how do we adapt. I
Yeah.
guess like from a professional and a personal perspective, but yeah, I think it's a really exciting time. I think you just got to like, yeah, just got to roll with it, man. Like these things
Yeah.
come, they're cool. Like there'll be another one in 10 years. If you worry too much about each of them, you're just going to be worrying every
You're
10 years,
definitely
and
an
I can't,
optimist,
and
though.
I can't deal with the stress.
Like you're definitely on the positive side, I think so. And maybe the last one is,
Yeah.
would you recommend anything? Like, do you look for anything differently now than you did back in the day? Obviously, you've put together a lot of CS teams, right? So I guess it's question like two questions in one. Do you look for anything differently now? Do you have any advice for someone in the CS world out there that's potentially going to be looking for a new job? Can they get into something, get better at something that maybe you will be looking at or could be helpful for them just to have it for the future?
Yeah, I so in terms of like behaviors, skills, I don't look for anything different. So all of the
Mm.
key things that I would look for, like tenacity,
Yeah.
real high curiosity, IQ, entrepreneurial drive, like all those key things are exactly the same. Right? I look for all of those same things. But the one thing that now I'm really intrigued by is how someone can extract 10x from their day job using the tools available to them. I
Mm.
think that's the really important thing. And so when I'm interviewing now, when I'm meeting CSMs, right, and I'm looking to kind of bring people on board, I'd really like to drill into that. Like how are you leveraging, and I'm not even talking about AI though. People want to talk about how they use AI, that's great. How are you leveraging what exists today to make sure you can 10x the current capacity of your job? Like really, really get as much like squeeze as much from the lemon as you possibly can. If I start to hear, oh, do you know what, I was really exploring with how to mass
Yeah.
email customers, but like if I start to hear that kind of stuff, like that's really great because I know that person's consistently thinking out of the box and they're going to leverage more and more of the technology that's at their disposal than someone who just isn't. So they're always going to struggle in their role, right? If I give them a portfolio of 200 customers, we're going to be having the same conversation in 6 months' time that I've had in the past, which is like, I have too many customers. I've got 5 calls a day. I've then got to
Yeah.
do the follow up. I've got to do the prep. It's like, honestly, you shouldn't have to do any of that anymore. Like, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that stuff I think is really, really important. But all the key behaviors and those bits and pieces are all exactly the same.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, for us, it's the same. Like, I feel like curiosity is a big one, and curiosity speaks a lot about the person. And if that person is actively, genuinely interested in like ways to improve and 10x the way that they work, that's like one of the best signals you can have as a candidate, I guess. But
Yeah, and
Dan,
it's yeah. Sorry.
sorry, no. I was gonna say
Go.
that no, you finish the sentence. Sorry.
Yeah, and I was going to touch on that curiosity one because it's really interesting. Like there's the curiosity, which is the questioning, and like the skill
Mm.
that I see CSMs have, which is great. Whereas they just don't let something go. Like if they really don't understand, they'll keep digging with the customer and digging with the customer until they get to where they want to get to. But then
Yeah,
I've seen CSMs that are great there, but actually have a very like have a real lack of curiosity when it comes to the tech space and like
yeah,
understanding what they can leverage. And it's really weird because you're like, I don't understand it. You're a highly curious person, yet you don't show it here. But there's different, like curiosity can be leveraged in different realms, which is really interesting. And actually, I'm really now interested in that second part, which is like
yeah,
how plugged in are you, right? That to the things that are going to enable you to do your job in a more efficient, productive way. But actually, I wouldn't have really thought about that before. Curiosity was always locked into the customer side. So now
yes.
I'm thinking about that thing much more on the other side of the fence than I was before. Yeah.
Super interesting. Well, Dan, I think this is a great place to leave it. It's been a pleasure having you. Thanks a lot
Yeah,
for
likewise.
joining.
No, thanks for having me. It's been
Awesome.
great.
Thank you.